Hey, Glenn.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Yeah, well, I'm all worked up over my conversation about daylight savings, but other than that, I'm okay. Having a good week.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah,
Sure. It's here in New Orleans. Next Tuesday is Mardi Gras, so we're getting in the Mardi Gras spirit. We had parades last weekend. We have parades coming up this weekend, and we're off Tuesday and gonna party.
Yeah, I saw some of your photos. I love this whole idea of Mardi Gras because it's so huge to you guys. I mean, it is to you local people, it is a massive thing. Like the kids are off of school, right? It's just like, but it's only in like your little. I don't mean that diminutively, but your geographically small area, right? And like everybody's like, oh yeah, I've heard of Mardi Gras. They do that at Universal, and it's kind of cool. Like most people, I did not understand Mardi Gras. I still don't, but I had a different idea of Mardi Gras before I met you and started talking. And I like seeing what I'm getting to is I like seeing your photos because you see like what a real sort of family, multi-generational kind of event it is, right? As opposed to what the sort of classical view of Mardi Gras, just French Quarter, bead throwing, etc.
Right. Which is not the Mardi Gras that I grew up with and know and everything else. That is that unfortunately that is the prevailing thought of what Mardi Gras is, and it's a shame. It really is a shame because people would. I'm not saying it's believe me, I'm not saying it's fully 100% family oriented, but it's definitely not as bad as it's made out to be on certain.
But I mean, like parade you went to, they have I'm sure most of them, they have like local high school drum bands and things. I mean, it's almost like a smaller version of like a Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade, right? I mean, it's not
if the Thanksgiving Day parade was good, sure.
What?
If the Thanksgiving Day parade was good, yeah, sure.
Oh dear, but I mean, that's sort of just sort of.
Yes. No, it is. It absolutely is.
A compliment. Yeah.
They a lot of like the parade we did go to, they have they actually have a marching band competition. So before the parade starts, the officials for the parade go around and the bands play for them, and then they award a winner, and they're the ones that lead off the parade. And they get some kind of cash prize and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean that's what all the local bands practice for is not just for football games halftimes, but also for Mardi Gras and marching in the parades and stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I have a new appreciation for it. I think it's kind of neat. And some of the, and you're going to go, well, yeah, duh. But like, I'm looking at some of the floats and the costumes and things. It must be like as soon as Mardi Gras season is done, they like immediately start into next year's preparations, right? And that stuff
they do.
Like it takes forever to do.
If you do come to New Orleans, one of the good things to do is go to Blaine Kern he's the main float builder for all the parades. He doesn't do every single parade, but he does the vast majority, and he does the biggest parades, and he actually does all of the floats for Universal's parade. Believe it or not.
Right.
But anyway, he has
get a lot of mileage out of those.
Yeah. They have the Blaine Kern Studios, which is right next to the New Orleans Convention Center.
Yeah, and I was there in June.
Yeah, it's a great place to go and take the tour and see. And you can go anytime during the year, and they are working on all of the floats.
I wish I'd known that. I might have gone because I was right there for 5 days. But,
yeah.
Oh well. Yeah. So, and before anybody gets all uppity that why are we talking about New Orleans Mardi Gras? This is a Disney show, sort of, kind of. There's a big connection between Mr. Disney and New Orleans.
Absolutely.
As a fan, we should talk about that in some detail. This would have been a good
we should not now, but that's a great idea for another show.
Yeah, maybe even like next show because Mardi Gras will have just ended. Maybe it's a good time.
Yeah,
up to you.
2 weeks.
That's your ballpark.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
All right. Well, hey, I have them once in a while. Write it down. But anyway, what else is going on?
So let's go over some news. We didn't do news last week, but So let's go through a few things that happened in the last couple of weeks in and around Disney.
Sounds good.
So the first story is one that you I had tweeted about it. You sent me one, a link to this like right after, independently, because you saw it, and it's such a interesting story. But apparently Disney has done some really cool things with their R&D. I mean, they're constantly thinking of new things for the parks, for their, whatever, animation or whatever. But they've done things like they've built robots that can make sand art. They've done all kinds of stuff that just out of the box. And so one of the things is that this story is about is Disney creates wireless power source, which is able to charge a mobile phone anywhere in a room. So the thought of why they're doing this is, everybody has mobile phones, right? Or, mobile devices. And Disney is really pushing their My Disney Experience app, where you can plan everything for your vacation on it and everything else. And so you pretty much need some kind of mobile device with you and charged at all times, right?
Which, by the way, I'm sure you'd agree, it's actually a really good app. I mean, in my line of work, I see a lot of apps, and it's the kind of thing that they could really have sort of half done, and it would be kind of, they could service it, but it wouldn't be great. It's actually it gets better even all the time. So,
and that's what I was going to say, because quite honestly, when I first got it and first used it with Magic Bands a few years ago, it was pretty awful. Like, I was cursing it.
Well, it got a lot better though.
It absolutely has gotten better. No, you're right. It has.
At least as a day tripper, for mostly what I'm using it for, which, whatever, sidebar, but, just they have photos taken, they show up right in the app, the ride times seem to be pretty accurate and updated and everything, so it seems pretty well done. Anyway, so, okay, so wireless charging to my phone, that sounds science fiction-y.
It does. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but from what I gather is they have to be, so the room that they've done this in is specifically built for this purpose. So the walls are made of aluminum, and
so you have to be in an Airstream. You can get an Airstream,
right? And they have a copper pipe right in the smack middle in the center of the room.
Just like everybody's house. Yeah,
just like everybody's house, exactly.
Okay.
So this is just their proof of concept and everything else. But yeah, so basically you don't do anything. You walk into the room and your phone just starts charging.
Yeah.
So it sounds like science fiction to me, but it sounds like they've actually done this. They've accomplished it, and they're putting in for a patent. Is that right?
I don't remember that part. Probably. That's what I would do.
Right.
So, and I know we don't want to spend a whole lot of time on news, but just on this topic. So, if I may. So, normally I would just kind of write this off like R&D, how silly they came up with this thing. It's not practical. They're not really going to get this in. One, it kind of surprises me that Disney did this. I know what you're saying about they do a lot of sort of advancements in technology, but this seems so outside their normal, because it's not, I guess because it's not entertainment related.
Right.
Great. I understand that if they had this feature in the park or in their rooms, then maybe something. But what really kind of interests me about this is that if anybody follows rumors of what happens in the technology space, there was a strong rumor this year that Apple will be coming out with that the next iPhone will have this sort of wireless charging capability to it. Like you just walk into a room and just through the ambient whatever that it gets charged. And because of that rumor, and because there's a pretty tight association ever since Disney bought Pixar, and maybe before that, but especially then, there's a pretty tight cooperation between Disney and Apple on a lot of stuff. Makes me wonder if there's any sort of overlap in these two things. So, haven't heard anything about that, but That wouldn't be too surprising. Or are these just two completely independent things? I don't know. But it would be kind of neat. It'd be neat if you just, as you're walking around the park, if they can get it to that scale where, you could just sort of like your phone never discharges, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that it's always there. It's always charged. Because you see people just, sitting by any electrical outlet that they can find. And they have that whole section by the Tinkle bathrooms that, you can plug into. But if you eliminate that and people can still be, in line for rides or in a store or wherever, spending money, right, then, it benefits Disney rather than you just sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah. Or why not on the People Mover? I mean, you're already running over magnets. Isn't there any way you could just sort of like
right,
get that electricity and have it, and I'm sure it's got to be good for your health, right? All that extra electricity, magnetism, it can't be anything wrong with that.
Well, so that's one thing they say is that apparently you can have up to 1900 watts going through the air before it starts impacting humans.
We think.
They think? Yeah. So there's a lot to still be worked out, but
nah, sure, it's fine.
But it definitely is.
Your phone will be charged.
Your phone will be charged. So there's a lot. There's a ways to go, but it's like you said, it is interesting that an entertainment company is trying to invent something like this. Whether it is with somebody else or in mind or whatever, I don't know, but
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll see where it goes.
That's right.
Maybe this year. Who knows even?
Maybe.
All right. What else? What else you got?
Okay.
You should have done that last. That's a pretty good start. Now where do you go?
All right. So now let's I'm looking at my list and I'm trying to you're right, I don't want to go too far down from that. So next everybody's second favorite droid will be
second favorite. Make sure you underscore that. Second favorite.
Did, right? Right.
Although I'm not so sure anymore, but go ahead.
So it was announced this week that BB-8 is going to greet guests at Disney's Hollywood Studios starting in the spring. They don't give a date, but
we're normally so grouchy about changes at Disney, and I can't wait for this. This sounds great.
Of course, this is awesome. Yeah. So along with Kylo Ren and Chewbacca, there's going to be a third photo op with BB-8. Who wouldn't want? I would love to go and see BB-8 and get my picture with him.
Yeah, naturally. Second favorite droid.
Second favorite.
Next to the Gonk droid.
Well, of course. Well, who else would we be talking about?
Gonk. There you go.
All right, so a couple. Let me get through a couple of these notes. Go. One is the at Animal Kingdom, Rivers of Light nighttime show started this past weekend, and I don't. Unlike the Epcot International Arts Festival, I've seen a few photographers that have said it's pretty photogenic and it's really cool to shoot, but I haven't seen a lot of feedback on it yet, so I'm not going to really say too much about it. I'm just saying that it started this past weekend. So.
Okay, so is it a reason to go to the world's worst theme park, or
I don't? That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't. I don't think it'd get me out there, but
okay. But it is news. You're right. It is news.
It is news.
Okay.
This spring, the Atlanta Braves celebrate 20 years of spring training at Disney at their wide world of sports. I was there when they started back in 1997, and so they're.
How old are you, man?
Yeah, I'm old.
That's great though. If you're a fan of baseball, that is a great park to see spring.
It is a great park.
Have you and I ever gone? I've been there, but I don't know if we've ever been there together.
I've been there. Yeah,
I know you have, but that's a great park. It's a shame all sort of minor league teams don't have a park like that.
No, and that's the saddest part is that there used to be a AA team that used to be there, and then they weren't there. They were there a couple seasons. And then,
It'll always be Cracker Jack Stadium to me, though. I'm never minded because that is a great
name, right? I mean, you can't deny that.
Right. So anyway,
yeah, it's just a shame that it's the home of the Braves. But anyway,
I thought for a minute you might be able to stay away from that, but you couldn't help yourself.
I
right?
despise the Braves.
Okay.
So,
right,
anyway,
oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Same bucket of baskets of horribles.
All right, onward.
All right, let's see what's next. Okay, a couple of fairly one pretty big news story, and then one huge rumor that we can talk about for a few minutes. But so this week it was announced that Disney's Coronado Springs, they're going to build a 15-story tower there. And it's really to build their convention business. The idea when they built Coronado Springs was to attract more moderate conventions to Disney, because they had built convention centers at Contemporary, the Grand Floridian, pretty much everywhere. All these
and the Swan and Dolphin actually have a pretty active one.
The Swan and Dolphin were built almost specifically for that, but high class. So they said, hey, we're not getting enough money from conventions. Let's target a slightly lower price range. And so they built Coronado Springs, and it's been very successful. But so now they're doubling down on it and building this tower.
I didn't realize. I didn't know. I didn't know that's why Coronado Springs was. I knew it was for conventions. I didn't realize it was for like a specific segment. And so that's what I've always kind of wondered, because I knew it was for conventions, but yet none of this. And I go to a fair number of shows, conventions, things in tech, but I've never seen anything that that would have been on my list of things to go to that was there. But yet it seems like it's always busy. So I guess they're. Yeah. I don't know what kinds. I'm curious what kinds of conventions go there. But I guess smaller ones. Yeah, just what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, smaller ones, or ones that can't. Maybe they're in a declining industry or something, and they could afford the Contemporary, but now they need to move down or something. I mean, seriously, I don't. That's
like
what
newspapers might have a.
Yeah, that's exactly where newspapers would be. Okay. If not the Holiday Inn on 192,
Yeah. But a 15-story building, I mean, that's like Contemporary height. I mean, that's...
Yeah, 500 more rooms. Wow. And Contemporary height, exactly.
Wow, that is which is a little surprising, because there's still land out there, I would have thought. So, but I guess, I don't know, maybe it's cheaper to build up. I don't know. Interesting. Yeah. Have you ever stayed there? I've never stayed.
I have not stayed there, but one of my relatives stayed there. Yeah. And we went to pick her up to spend the day with her, and we walked around the grounds a little bit. Mm-hmm. But that's the extent. Okay.
I always feel it's silly, and I know you want to move on from news, but it's what I do. And I feel bad, because every time I drive to just where my house is and where I drive, I pass by it on the way in and out every time I go. And I kind of feel bad for it, because it almost seems like the forgotten resort. Like, oh yeah, like it never should get shown in really any ads or anything, I don't think. Right. And so, but I guess if it's mainly about business and conventions, it wouldn't like. I don't know. Do they ever market it as just a place to stay? I've never really seen it, but
yeah, they do. I mean, I don't know who would want to stay there, but yeah.
Well, that's not a bad resort, right? I mean,
no, it's not. It's a moderate. I'm sure it's perfectly fine.
All the Coronado Springs fans are now.
I know. It's not one that I would. It's not at the top of my list. So let me just. That's my personal opinion.
Because of theming, or like where it is.
Yeah, theming. It just doesn't turn me on.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. So, and what's weird is I drive by it, but you can't. Unlike, I think almost all the other resorts, although maybe Caribbean Beach can't. Anyway, driving past it, you can't really even get a good sense of what the resort is, like how big it is, or
right. That's true.
Right. It just seems sort of hidden back there. But okay, but they're going to get a big. So that's rumor, or that's fact?
So that's fact.
Okay, that's fact. All right,
that's
15. Fact. Wow, 15-story building. That's ginormous. Okay.
So the other part that they threw in here is that the Caribbean Beach Resort will be, and I'm going to read, will be reimagined with new additions to the resort's current marketplace, Centertown, including new waterfront dining and retail shopping areas.
The like park within a park.
centralized location will offer the resort's guests more convenient access to services, amenities, and dining. What they don't say is that, and I think we covered it 2 weeks ago, that they're going to actually demolish a few of the buildings, hotel, the room buildings, and they're going to build a tower there as well. And the thought is that that's going to be DVC. But they can't say that yet. So,
okay. Yeah,
so that's still a rumor, but so the other huge rumor that came out of nowhere this week is that
before you get into it, I don't know how you want to grade this.
Okay.
But before we get people's hopes up or down either way, I mean, do you see this as a strong rumor? Is this somebody just dreamt this up? I mean, what before you say what it is this credible rumor or is this just fantasy?
I think it's pretty credible.
Yeah, okay.
Because I've seen other things like this on WDW Magic. Yeah. There are people out there that, God bless them, all they do, well, not all they do, but I'm sure they're not just sitting there like with no job and they're just
all they do is they sit around in their shorts.
But they know how to look for permits. They know how Disney files permits and everything else for what they're going to build, and then they post it on wdwmagic.com, and then discussion takes off. And I think these are pretty good rumors. As oddball as they are, if you look at the plans and the permits and everything else, and a lot of what we've been talking about with transportation, how something else is needed. I if I was a betting man, I would say this is probably true.
Okay. Do we want to tell the people what we're talking about now?
Yeah, let's go ahead. So the rumor is that Disney will build a new gondola that will go it'll go between Epcot, Disney's Hollywood Studios, the Caribbean Beach Resort, and Art of Animation Resorts.
A gondola. So you're talking like in Venice, like a boat? What are we talking about?
No, so it's like the old Skyway, right? In Tomorrowland to Fantasyland.
Yeah.
One of those, and obviously bigger and more that can hold more people, and that's nicer than that. But apparently this is the new trend in...
So monorails are out. Gondolas are in.
Yeah. So,
I mean, this is interesting. We've complained about the monorail shortage to other places a few times to everybody's liking. So, this would be mind blowing if they do this, right? I mean, that
it's pretty wild, especially when you consider that every afternoon in the summer there's a thunderstorm.
Yeah, that just makes it more exciting.
Around 3:00. And so, I didn't even think about the threat of hurricanes.
That's interesting.
And so it is kind of weird.
Is there any model for this? Because like with monorails, actually I don't know when they first came to Disneyland whether there was or not. But I mean now there are municipalities that have monorails that used all the time. Is there anything like this at that scale? Like
not to the scale, no.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it. I mean, there's lots of things like that, like in mountainous regions to kind of get you up and down a mountain, or
right, exactly.
Maybe across a river or something. But and I guess this could just be linking a bunch of individual stations or whatever. But wow. So so what is the evidence? What came up that led to this?
So the permits are for structures and so for the structures to be built. So they need structures for the
the towers,
for the stations,
the masts,
as well as for the turns. So there's looking at the plans and where they say they need to do this construction, it looks like there would be 2 even greater than 90-degree turns. So there'd be 2, when there was a Skyway in Tomorrowland, you'd go down and there was that 90-degree turn to Fantasyland.
Yep.
You'd have something similar there. So that's what I'm saying. It's all rumor. It's based on what the permits are asking for and the locations and the look of the structures, just from above on the map where they would be.
Yeah.
It just lends to be
I guess
something transportation related.
Yeah.
And
so,
go ahead.
No, and
it doesn't look like it's monorail related because of it's not sweeping curves.
Right.
It's way more angular turns.
And not enough pylons, right? I mean, those
not enough pylons.
Right. Wow. So in some ways it's mind blowing, and you're like, "There's no way they'd ever do that." In other ways, you go, "Well, why not? It gets them above the trees. I guess there's not a whole lot of they don't need a whole lot of ground working to do it, just where the stations and towers or whatever those are. So I guess it kind of makes sense. But you're right. I didn't even think about like the thunderstorm aspect. Like, So where? Like I want to go. This would take me from like Magic Kingdom to Epcot. Could I do that? How does this go?
Nope. So okay.
Okay. So, nope. You're stuck on a monorail.
Oh, you want to go there? No.
Nope.
Take the old-fashioned monorail.
Yeah, bus. Sorry. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy the bus.
That's right. So it looks like it would go, if we were originating in Epcot, it would go from the International Gateway.
Yeah.
That's where the station would be.
Okay.
It would go over the boardwalk. Well, kind of in right on the backside of the hotel, the boardwalk hotel.
Yep.
And over the parking lot, so you get the scenic parking lot view.
All right.
It would turn.
Yeah.
It would turn, make a hard left at that point, and then go along Buena Vista Drive, which is the main drag between Epcot and Hollywood Studios, and the Swan and Dolphin and all the.
Mm-hmm.
Head toward Caribbean Beach. There would be a hard turn there, and it would go over, and that's actually where, coincidentally, that's where the a lot of the new construction and new buildings are going to be for Caribbean Beach Resort. So they would, the assumption is they would integrate that into whatever they're building at the Caribbean Beach.
So if you're Disney, why do you do this? Why do you need to do this?
It's that's a good question. I mean, it's I think they've heard enough. I don't want to say complaints, but enough input that
from this show,
from this show specifically, that they need to do something with transportation, and they need to expand the monorail line. And I think the cost for the monorail line at this point would be outrageous, and so they probably just want to do something different. And
I was going to say, and something we never really
option.
touched on before, but if they did extend the monorail, that it might just get a big yawn and it's more monorail. But this would be something very different and new for sure.
Yeah,
but
it would.
Is that I know. I'm sorry, I know you didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on news, but this is fascinating. So, to me? So, is this like do you think this is a troubled spot for current transportation? Is this like an area they can't serve, or there's too many buses to deal with, or it's taking too I don't know.
No, actually, I think it's just these resorts are close enough together that it would easily service a big chunk of rooms, and really just just based on proximity, it's just easy enough to plop this down and service a lot of people and take those buses off of the streets. I don't think there's any problem with them, with the transportation. It's just that Well, and part of it too is, we're talking about Caribbean Beach.
Yeah.
If they put DVC there, the thought is
at a reasonable price, right?
Maybe it doesn't. Maybe they make Caribbean Beach not a moderate anymore. Maybe it moves up to deluxe.
Wow, I would have thought the opposite. Maybe they're bringing DVC back down to a more economical level versus just having DVC be at premium hotels.
Yeah, and that's what the popular thought is, but
that's what everybody thinks, Chris. So.
Yeah. I mean, that is that's what I think too. But nothing says it has to stay, especially if they're doing new construction and everything else. Or there's nothing that says it can't be a hybrid, right? Like the DVC is
CBR
deluxe.
Plus. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And they get a special amenity or where the station is right there or something like that.
Wait, did you say this would have stops at the studios? Did you say that?
Yeah, so if you're following along, so we went from Epcot to.
I need pictures.
I'm looking at a picture. I'll link to it in the show notes.
All right.
But we go from Epcot, the International Gateway, then we go follow the main drag to the Caribbean Beach Resort, and then you turn and you go to the Art of Animation, which the Art of Animation, it's all family suites, right?
Right.
So it's even though Pop Century is right there and that's a value, the Art of Animation is not a value.
Okay.
It's
and to Disney Springs, does this get me down there?
No, it terminates there, but it also, so there's an offshoot from the Caribbean Beach to Art of Animation.
Yeah.
There's an offshoot that would basically put throw the gondolas to Hollywood Studios.
Yeah. So that's what I'm kind of wondering is like with the changes at Disney Springs and the changes at the studios, I wonder if they're just expecting a huge, like today, it's not a problem today, but once you have Star Wars Land there and cars, then, maybe they're just expecting it's going to be such a massive destination that they feel they need to do something like that.
Yeah.
I think nothing else to kind of shift to make that more of a, what am I trying to say? Because right now it's kind of, those are kind of out there. I mean, it's not like the center of the Disney World universe is still Magic Kingdom and Big Epcot, and then but this may shift those dynamics a bit, right? So maybe that's what they're kind of thinking, yeah.
Right.
Wow. Okay. Well, I can't wait to see what they do with this.
We'll wait and see.
So I know you love high places. Would you ride this thing?
That's a very good question. I honestly don't know.
Thank you. All right. And of course, this is going to be part of the. This is just only be for the premium express riders, right? I would imagine this.
So that's a good question. Nobody knows yet, but it's just interesting that they're thinking of something besides buses and monorails and boats. Which, hey, you know what?
Lighter.
More power to them. Why not?
Hey, if they're gonna, sure.
It's better than a bus.
That'd be fantastic. Next will be gliders. They're just gonna launch you. Awesome. Now, speaking of express transportation,
so the last bit of news I have is, and man, I'm so glad I did this a couple of weeks ago when I was there. But they just introduced this in December, and what I'm talking about is the express transportation, where you pay an extra X amount of dollars per day or X amount per for your whole stay.
Right.
And you can go from the Magic Kingdom to Epcot without or any whatever combination of from theme park to theme park, without leaving the Disney bubble. So it's like if you were in an airport and had to stay in the international terminal, you stay in the bubble, and so you don't have to go through security and everything else, and it lets you off right in the park. Literally in the park.
Right.
So, I did it for $15 and it worked like a charm, as much as I hate to say that. So
which actually, hang on, but before you move on, I didn't really think about it in these terms when you were here and you did it and even when we talked about it, but did you realize you paid $15 for a bus ride?
Yeah.
Like that's got to be the most expensive bus ride that you have or will have ever taken in your life? I'm going to guess, unless you do it again, I guess. That's pretty expensive. Right, exactly. Like now, granted, you could have taken advantage of it if you were.
I could have used it the whole
one trip.
Day. I know.
Yeah, I know. It was research, so it was. But that's expensive for a bus ride. But
I know.
All right. So what's happening with these? So
they're going up $4. $4. Wow, so from 15 to 19, if you buy it single day, and then from 25 to 29 if you buy it for a length of stay.
You think that's a signal that it's been pretty popular, or are they just trying to see how far they can push the pricing to get to see where the limit is?
Yes, on both counts.
Yeah, okay. Because you were there, I guess I'm asking you because you were there, judging by line size, or if you've seen other people's reaction to it.
Yeah, on my bus there were 7 other people.
Yeah.
So it was not packed, and that was 4:00 in the afternoon, where you would figure that might be a popular-ish time to switch parks. Right. Considering that the bus only runs 2 times an hour, right? So, and it was it was a Friday. So maybe on the weekends it's a little more popular, but it's also a new service. People I don't think they advertise it that much. No, I know when I bought my 1-day ticket, they never told me a thing about it.
There's no real signs up or anything
no, not really. So, they have the little, the little folding signs that they put on the ground. Say, this is where you catch the bus, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, if it weren't for this show, I would never realize it existed. So, but that's interesting, though. I mean, gosh, if you're a family of 4, that's $80 a day. Now, granted, you get a discount for length of stay or whatever it is, but still $80 a day. I mean, you'd have to do a whole lot of park hopping to make that a good investment, right?
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't think most people do. Like, what do you think most people park hop once in a day and then not doing 2 or 3 or 4, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're there for a week or any number of days, I would think, I mean, the most I ever park hop was, maybe once a day. I mean, quite honestly. Or you go, you start out at the Magic Kingdom, but you have a reservation at Epcot for lunch at Via Napoli, and then so you just get on the bus. It takes you right there. You go eat lunch, and then you go back to Magic Kingdom.
No, that's too much
Something
work.
like that.
Yeah,
well, not with express transportation.
Yeah, it's still work. I don't know. That's pricey. I don't know if I would do that. But now, if I could get on a skyway, like a gondola,
right? That would be awesome.
All right. Price increases all around. You don't mention in your news. Did we talk about it last time? The increase there? I guess we did.
Oh, yeah.
Did they increase their prices?
Yeah,
Universal did. Well, related or not, news came out this week that I guess SeaWorld, now granted they have their own troubles, but that, attendance and revenue and everything was way off for them. Yeah. So I just wondered if that's something just specific to SeaWorld, or if that's sort of something that's happening with this kind of entertainment overall that nobody else is just talking about as much.
Yeah, I mean, Disney is down. Their attendance was down last year, but it's nothing like the reasons SeaWorld.
Yeah, I know.
That's a complete. That's an orange when we're talking about apples.
All right. Okay. All right. Sorry, SeaWorld.
They have a lot of problems with SeaWorld, man.
Which my son said to me the other day, out of the blue. Now, he's been to SeaWorld once, but he doesn't remember it. He was like a year old, maybe a year and a half. He said, out of the blue, he's like, can we go to SeaWorld? I'm like, no, we're not going to SeaWorld.
Right.
Where did that come from? I don't know. He must have seen an ad or something.
Yeah.
Some subliminal messages from SeaWorld, which is a shame. I kind of like SeaWorld. I don't know.
I do too. I like the penguins and the seals.
Yeah. Did you watch that? Was it Blackwater? Did you watch that the thing that kind of began their decline?
I would be crying. I can't watch that.
And I know we're mostly talking about Disney, but still, and I don't know any of the details. I wouldn't say I've intentionally kept myself ignorant, but I've just not gotten into whatever all that was about. But I always thought of SeaWorld as the good guys. They're the people that took care of the whales. That these whales were they were troubled whales. They were found or injured or whatever. I thought they. No, I'm ignorant on it, so I don't know.
No, these are born in captivity and stuff. Yeah, they really shouldn't be. And that's the thing. SeaWorld has done a tremendous amount of good things for like manatees and sea turtles and all these, all these other things. Like they go out into the wild in Florida and help these animals, and they help them at like manatees. They'll have them at SeaWorld. And then they'll put them into the wild, or they'll rescue them from the wild.
That's what I'm saying. That's kind of the impression I have of SeaWorld and their marine biologist activities, right?
Right. It's just the whales. Like the whales really shouldn't.
But the
be.
whole I guess
it's just too small for the size that they are. Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing.
Totally get it. Yeah, totally get it. Huh. Well, what a shame. I still kind of like SeaWorld, but
Well, yeah. I mean, where else are you going to see a whale? Right?
Well, yeah. For sure. I don't know.
And then you're watching they play the video and they're like, oh yeah, the killer whales are native to where, and, but they eat the baby seals and stuff. It's like, wait, what? I thought this was like a friendly little whale we were going to see.
They're called killer whales, Glenn. Killer whales.
Yeah, apparently so.
Okay. Oh well, sorry.
Eating like the baby pup seals, like popcorn, like.
Yeah. Oh. Then we should talk about, I guess, the circus and them shutting down. So the elephants won't have jobs anymore.
Well,
but actually, I'm happy about that. Did you?
Of course.
Did you ever like circuses?
I hate circuses.
Me too. Like
I've
creepy,
always
right?
hated it. When as a kid, my mom and dad took me to a circus one time. I hated it.
I remember. Yeah, my grandfather took me, and I was I might have been 4, whatever, but I remember it and just it being like this. This is just weird, right?
Yeah.
But, well, whatever.
And we actually took the kids a few years ago or something. And
I can't stand them. They're totally weird. But I took my children.
Well, I mean, look.
Because I want them to grow up with the same sense of weirdness that I had.
We had free tickets.
That's funny. I'm only laughing because I did think about it once when I knew they were coming to town. I'm like, should I take my son? And I'm like, no, that's I don't like it.
But we did go. And the whole time I'm thinking, man, I really don't want to be here because you're looking at the elephants, you know what they do to them, and the tigers and everything, and you're hoping that when he puts his head in the tiger, that the tiger's just going to finally eat him and stuff. But
enough of this showbiz.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, ugh.
Yeah. All right. Well. Oh well, we still have zoos though, right? And in Animal Kingdom, I can still go see some animals.
Oh man, what are you doing?
I'm just trying to bring it back on track. Animal Kingdom, Disney. All right, what else can we talk about?
All right,
how would we take pictures of these animals at these places?
I don't know. So that's a great segue, Chris.
So that's the only thing I can do. I suck at the rest of life. There's nothing else I'm good at, but segues, I can craft those. That's all I'm good at.
All right, so we had our
magic power.
We had our first photography episode last week.
Mm-hmm.
And the feedback that I got was that it was a pretty darn good episode.
Oh, no, see, you're underselling it. Overwhelming. It was the most amazing feedback anybody's ever gotten about a podcast.
That's right.
It was incredible.
And we did, should I announce this?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
We doubled our audience by that one episode.
Yeah, take that, SeaWorld. That's right. Doubled. That's some growth. 2 to 4. No, we're not going to talk about numbers. We're just going to talk about increases.
What are you doing?
You can edit this.
Dixney on the Umber News.
100% increase.
That's right. Over 100%.
I can finally buy that Tesla I've been wanting.
Tesla.
From all our sweet, sweet ad revenue. But anyway, we joke, but actually people liked it.
Yes.
In all seriousness, it sounded like you were actually talking about a subject that you actually liked and not, were cranky about.
Right. Right. It was like, I think I heard, it sounded like y'all actually liked each other somewhere in there, like we weren't fighting for once.
Well, that was a mistake. How did that happen?
I don't know. That was like, I got to re-edit.
How did that get in there? Oh, that's funny. Well, screw you, Glenn. What do you want to talk about now?
All right, so why don't we talk about and I don't know. We took it pretty basic last week with our discussion. We talked about where we took photos and what we'd like to do, but I know at a few points in there we threw in things like wide angle or fisheye and I didn't know
lenses. Yep.
if it might be a good time to advance it a little bit and talk about what lenses we do use. And what camera we use for, just even that basic.
Yeah, because I would imagine, anybody who's really serious into photography, they're going to kind of, I don't know how much we could talk about that might actually help them. But, I know it is like people kind of in two camps with photography these days. It seems like, my phone's good enough, and phones, man, they take some amazing pictures. In fact, I follow a couple of like photo groups that are just specifically pictures taken with mobile phones.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's anything specific for Disney for that, but that would be interesting. We should start that. And but there are other people that want to go a little bit more serious about it, and then they get DSLRs or mirrorless cameras or something with interchangeable lenses. But it seems like people often have what kind of lens should I get, right? So
yeah.
I mean, you and I, we have kind of an assortment, but usually when I go to Disney, I don't take every lens I own. But what about you? So like when you were down here last, since you did this most recently, what was your lens selection, and what do you recommend people have if unlike you, if people had a set budget they could spend on lenses, and they wanted to have some good pictures at the park, what should they do?
Well, I can talk about that. About budget, photographing on a budget, because that is me 100%. Okay.
Right. So less than
I beg, borrow, and steal, man. Okay, so I use a Sony A6000. It is a Sony. It's a mirrorless camera, but it does have the interchangeable lenses. It is not a full frame camera. It's a crop sensor camera.
Right.
I tend, because it, just back up just for a second. I started with Nikon, and I had a D50 and I have a D7000, and I have lenses for those. But what I found was that they are pretty darn heavy. And that was one of the main drivers of going with the Sony, because it's a lot lighter. And when I am on vacation, you can ask my wife and kids. I have this awesome, and I think Chris actually used it as a pick of the week, but I have an awesome strap from Peak Design. It's a hand strap, so I don't actually wear a strap. So I actually have my camera in my hand all day, the entire time I'm there. And because it's so small, it's a lot easier to carry this thing around. I was doing that with my Nikon, but it's a lot easier with this thing. So what I tend to do, I don't like to change lenses a lot, but I have 4 lenses that I have in my bag. And so the first one is, well, actually my first lens that I ever got for the Sony is an 18 to 105 millimeter. It doesn't have the aperture on it.
And when we start talking focal length,
it's f4. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Is it f4 all the way through?
Yeah, all the way through.
Fixed f4?
Well, no, it's not fixed, but that's the lowest you can go.
Oh, okay. What is it? Just like f4, f5, 6? Probably.
Yes.
Yeah. So just to recap, in case this is new to anybody, so focal length is like you get wide angle or you can have zoom. And then the aperture or the f-stop is how much light can that thing let in, right? So usually the trade-off is the broader the range of a zoom, if you're talking about zoom lenses, and the lower price, you're going to have a much smaller maximum aperture and probably going to be variable, right? So
yeah.
Okay, and so and focal lengths get a little bit complicated because the effective picture you get out of them is very different if you're using. Like you mentioned, you're using what's called a crop sensor camera, right? It's not a full frame is considered what 35 millimeter used to be. So if that were like the standard, crop sensor, usually APS-C, if we're talking about your camera, maybe a little bit different if we're talking about like micro four thirds or something. But they're a little bit smaller than a full frame of a 35 millimeter film, like it used to be. So it changes the effective focal length, right? So generally speaking, you're going to have less field of view in a crop sensor image, right? So, but the focal lengths are all the numbers are the same, but the actual kind of picture you get out of it. So,
Right.
So in your camera, 28 to 105, that's actually pretty telephoto. Like normal would be in a 50 millimeter range is kind of what we see as people, right? So yours is kind of going from what we see to, pretty telephoto, a little bit more magnified, right? To reach out.
Yeah. So it's a good lens for, it's a good, it's not as wide as I like it, but it's a good lens, during the day. If you want to zoom in on something, a detail on a building or something like that, it's an okay lens. It's not the best. And so that's why, even though I take it with me, I rarely have it on my camera.
Okay. All right. So that's one you take. But
that's one I take.
But you said you don't use it all.
It's the closest to zoom lens that I have. And that's the reason I take it.
And I'm gonna editorialize a little bit on my thoughts about zoom lenses in a little bit. But before we get there, what else is in Glenn's bag?
So the lens that I have on my camera most of the time is this nifty 10 to 16
18.
10 to 18. Once again, f4 as well.
But that's a fixed f4, right?
Yes, it is. So I used to use a similar range lens on my Nikon, but it was actually 11 to 16. So this is actually just a hair wider. And
not enough to really matter at that.
Not enough to really matter. Yeah. And my Nikon was actually a f2.8, which is really cool because I could take in dark places like a lot better. But anyway,
but that's the thing, right? The lower the f-stop number, the more light you're letting in.
Right. But then again, the trade-off of the size of the camera and the lens, it more than makes up for the few photos I would take in an attraction.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and before I move on, and that is the thing that makes lens selection, when you're talking about what do I buy to have for my lenses, so complicated, is that there's lots of different corners of how you want, little trade-offs that you have to figure. Is like, well, what's the price of the lens? How much light does the lens let in? How big is the lens and heavy is it? How much range does it have on it? So lenses seem pretty simple, but those, when you start factoring those different things, it can get pretty complicated, which is why idiots like us end up buying way more lenses than we actually need. So
yeah.
All right. So moving on, two lenses. Something on the so you have like a telephoto zoom essentially, right? If we put them in buckets, you have a telephoto zoom.
Yep.
You have a wide angle zoom. Yep. And I know, especially for Disney, because there's a lot more, there's a lot of buildings, a lot of outside things. I bet that 10 to 18 gets a lot of use, right? Probably more than
it does. Let me go through the last two lenses I have, and then I want to go back to the wide angle and why I use it.
Okay. All right.
The most. So the next one is a fixed length zoom. It's a 35 millimeter, but f1.8. So this one is good. I used it during my last trip, like in the Haunted Mansion. Got a couple good shots of Madame Leota's head floating and things like that. So this is really good for low light situations. And it is little. It's a small little lens too. So
it's nice for that. Yep.
Yeah. And then the last lens I have is I don't want to call it gimmick lens, but it really kind of is. It's a fisheye lens that I like to just play around with and experiment a little bit. But it's actually from my Nikon, but it's a fully manual lens that even on the Nikon, it was I had to you have to focus it and everything else. But it's a Rokinon. Is that how you say it?
Sure.
So it's a 8 millimeter f3.5 fisheye, and so I had to have an adapter on it, but it's not that big of a lens, so it fits in this lens selection. The 4 lenses I have, it fits nicely in there. But it's just fun to use every now and then.
Right. Okay.
So real quick, the reason I use my wide angle lens the most is simply because I found that that's the one I can tell stories with the best. And what I mean by that is way back when I would say it was probably the first vacation we took with my son. I think like 2010. I think I actually borrowed your wide angle lens from my Nikon.
Okay.
Because you had like a, I don't know what the range was, but it was a nice wide angle lens. And I didn't really, I play, I had it on the camera and I'm like, okay, I'll play around with it. But I took one shot. And
it was a Sigma 10-20 that I had.
Yep. 10 to 20. And I took one shot with it and I saw it when I got home and I'm like, that's it. I finally get it. And it was on the Jungle Cruise and my wife was holding my son. But I took the shot and they were both looking at one of the scenes. Well, you can see that scene in the same shot, and so you know what they're looking at, and,
right.
And so it shows where they are, what they're doing, and it kind of completes the story a little bit better than the other lenses. And once I figured out the key was almost really to be up close, to get in close, and let the background take care of itself. Instead of using it to try to capture, everything in a landscape.
Yep.
That's when I realized that that's the magic of wide angle lenses.
And that is a very, and most people don't realize that, is that the best use of that is that you actually, because it's a wide angle lens, you think, okay, I'm going to have this sweeping vista of whatever it is.
Right.
Which is actually what you're getting if you're just taking pictures with your mobile phone. That's kind of what you're getting. Not quite as wide angle as what you're talking about, but you're getting a wide angle view of, I'm at the hub and I got the castle and I got a nice big, wide shot of there. But there's no, and that's fine. It's an average picture, whatever. But if you want some dynamism and some storytelling, like you said, you actually need something in the foreground a little bit. You still, you're still getting that vista and that sort of scene setting thing that you're talking about that they're great for. But you still, whether it's your family or you got, the partner statue, or you need something kind of in the foreground that is kind of like making it the subject while still capturing the whole environment around it. So
right, exactly.
Yeah, a little bit trickier to use those. Yeah,
it is. Okay. So anyway, so that's my lenses. That's my setup. That's why I shoot what I shoot.
So this is what everybody should use. They should go out and emulate that.
No, not at all. Not at all. And that's where, looking at Flickr or Instagram or whatever at other people's photos to get different ideas. I rarely, from the lenses I just mentioned, I have one that's kind of a zoom, telephoto zoom, but I rarely use it. But there are others that use zoom lenses, and it's they get phenomenal results. And I haven't gotten there yet.
Well, and so and that's something I want to talk about while you were talking about your approach to photography, specifically Disney World photography, is that you're telling a story, and that's the beauty about photography, is that that's just one angle. Literally, somebody can take one perspective, if you will, of photography, is that sort of photojournalist kind of view, which is I'm placing a scene and kind of get the vibe around it. I never thought about it before. I'm wondering if your family history of news organizations might play into that. I don't know. It is one way to do photography. Another way is what you might look at as sort of like commercial advertising photography. Because if you look at what Disney does, that's not what they're usually doing. They're usually doing close up on people with sort of like just a little bit of the scene. You got the girl on top of dad's shoulders holding the balloon, and maybe in the background you see a little bit of the castle, whatever. There's tons of shots like that from Disney themselves. That's going to be a more telephoto view, right? A more zoomed in view. Yeah. This is where the fun of lenses comes in, and this is where photography is to a point now where you need almost nothing to take an amazing shot. Just your cell phone will take a better picture than any camera I could have bought 20 years ago. And in any sense of the stretch. So taking a good quality picture from that standpoint, from a technical quality, anybody can do that. And what it comes down to after that is figuring out how to use the tools to kind of get your perspective and your feel out of it, and what you want out of your pictures. So that's what's kind of fun. It's expensive fun because you got to try different things. But and lenses can and do get very expensive. And this is, I have been in photography since I was 12 years old. I worked in camera stores on my way through high school and college and everything. And I saw it over and over again where people would spend a lot of money on a camera and then they would chintz on the lens, and that is completely upside down, upside down. And that's a couple of things I would implore people to do is number one, go spend way more on a lens than you're comfortable with, because chances are you will appreciate that quality difference in the end somehow. And, you might say, well, this one's $150. Let me tell you, that lens for $150 is probably not that great. And there's probably another one that seems kind of similar, but it's $500. Let me tell you, you're going to have that lens for a long time, and that extra $350, whatever that math is, $250, I don't know, you figure it out. But whatever that price difference is, you will make up for in way better photos over the long term. So spend on the lenses.
Yes.
So, but back to lens selection. So you've got pretty specialized lenses. What would you recommend if somebody said, "I'm just getting into this. Glenn. I'm gonna follow in your footsteps. I'm gonna get a Sony mirrorless camera. What should I get? I don't have unlimited funds, but I'm willing to invest a little bit of money. I don't want to carry every lens in the world, but I want to, I'm going to go there with my family. I want to, take good shots. I want to come back and I want to, have my screensaver going at work a year later and really like the pictures I took. So what would you recommend to somebody to take, or what have you? I know, friends and family often ask you what they should do. So what would you say?
So out of my lenses, I would say the wide angle. And I would say the 28-105 simply because it's a good walk around lens, and there will be times where you want to zoom in on your child's face or something like that, and it gives you the versatility to really get in there and get closer than you absolutely would with the wide angle lens. That would be my recommendation if you just want to start out. And the 28-105 is really, it's not quite a kit lens, but it's it's a step above that. But it's it just gives you a nice versatility where you can get a little bit wide, but you can zoom in if you want. That would be my recommendation, at least to start.
Okay. All right. So can I give is this where I can editorialize a little bit after I already talked about it?
No.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. So you can edit it out if you don't like to, but this is an area I'm passionate about because I used to work in camera sales, so hang on. So and I have opinions. So So number one, like I said, spend more money on lenses than you are comfortable doing because you'll appreciate it. Number two, and I know this is gonna be a very unpopular opinion. And I know if people follow this advice, they would curse me out. Don't use zoom lenses. The more I'm going to add some more layers to that logic in a second. But as a general rule, zoom lenses are your last choice. And let me explain why. And over the years, I have learned this lesson over and over, and I'm finally getting to a point where I've just accepted that this is how the universe works. Mm-hmm. Lenses are made to be the way physics works, the way you get the best image out of lenses is you have a single focal length, right? So you have a 50 millimeter, a 35 millimeter, or a 200 millimeter, whatever. You will get no better image quality than if you have a fixed focal length lens. Now, the pain of that is that if you want to change the perspective, then you have to zoom with these devices called your feet. You have to move, around
sneaker
to kind
zoom.
of move, right? Sneaker zoom. Yeah. Sneaker zoom. You have to move in around to change the perspective. Now, going back to photography up to, I don't know when zoom lenses first came into being, probably in the 60s, 70s, somewhere there. That's the only choice people had was to do that. Now, but through the magic of science, we have zoom lenses that they can cover a lot of range. Now, the downside with the fixed focal length lenses, the ones that are not zoom lenses, obviously, is you have to change lenses. Yeah. So, and somebody says, that's kind of a pain to change lenses. Yes, it is. But if you want, just like most things in life, if you want to maximize the quality of what you're using, you will get the best quality from the fixed focal length lenses. Now, that being said, I am realistic, and even myself, I know that's not always practical, especially I'll tell you the difference in a second. But sometimes you need a zoom lens. So my next bit of advice is if you have to get a zoom lens, get the shortest zoom range that will satisfy what you're trying to do. So a lot of what I see a lot of people do, which makes my heart cry, but what I see a lot of people do is they'll buy an interchangeable lens system like a Sony.
Yeah.
And then they'll get like a 10 to 3,000 lens and put it on there.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So they're just, they basically just got this massive zoom lens that's going there. The lens lets in almost no light at all because if you had to have a 200 millimeter lens that let in, f4 amount of light, that would be such a massively sized lens,
right?
That it's just not practical. So if you do have to get a zoom lens, get one at least that's in a pretty tight range. Now, I'll disagree with you a little bit on your choice of lenses, kind of. Zoom lenses are more important on the telephoto end than they are on the wide angle end. Only in the practical sense that the more wide angle it gets, I can move just a little bit myself and change the view on it. It's much harder to say, how do I put this? One time I was trying to take pictures of a parade with a telephoto lens. And I had a fixed, I think it was a 90 millimeter or something I was using at the time. And it was too much zoom, too much telephoto-ness, if you will, for the floats as they were going by. We're actually pretty close to the thing. Now, I couldn't really move back. I'd be like, hey, family, see ya. I'm going to go stand 20 feet back. And so it's not really realistic in that sense.
Yeah.
If I were doing wide angle, I could probably move around a little bit. I can crop it afterwards. I have more flexibility there. So as you get more telephoto, it becomes more important, I think, to have that flexibility, but split up the range in that sense. So, I'd recommend people get fixed focal lengths in the wider angle zooms. So if we're talking 35 millimeter equivalent, whatever, like a 20 millimeter fixed or maybe a 35 millimeter, always get whatever they call the prime lens, the sort of main lens. On 35 millimeter, it'd be like something around a 50 millimeter equivalent lens. On like the camera you have, it'd be more like a 35. You're going to get great light capture, as you know. You can get f-stops all the way down to like 1.8. And then maybe you have something that's more telephoto that's maybe like 80 to 200, right? Something in that range. But try to get the best quality you can. So anyway, that's my bit. If you're at all serious about getting into the better pictures, and I presume you are if you're spending money on a camera like these Sony systems or DSLRs or whatever, then don't skimp on the lens. Spend the money. Try a couple of prime lenses, they're called, the fixed focal lengths. Don't just get the super zooms. There, I went on my rant. I feel better now. I got that out. Lenses are so important. But I will say, if you're picking lenses, do try a little bit of telephoto lens at the park. I think people don't try that enough. We talked about it last week with the, turning around and taking a picture of your family that might be in the Astro Orbiter rocket behind you, right? You need to have a little bit of a telephoto lens for that. So, try those things. You can zoom in on details of the park a bit more rather than just getting the same broad spectrum of the castle everybody else has. You can zoom in on a particular aspect of it or something. So, to contradict myself, zooming in, but there you go. So it's good to have a mixture. Yeah. So summary, good to have a mixture.
Yep.
Try some at the extremes, right? Try some extreme wide angles, maybe even some fisheyes. Try to limit zooms. At least I think so. Yeah.
What camera do you use?
I use also a Sony. Which is hard for me. I was explaining this to somebody that I know the other day that I use a Sony today, but I was a not just a Nikon user, but a Nikon fanatic since I was 12 years old. I mean, to me that, and it's changed a lot over the years, but back when I was a kid, Nikon was the brand that the serious photojournalists used. Now, the Canon kind of snatched that away from them, and then through the 80s, 90s, and beyond, they became like the photojournalist camera. But Nikon still, the history, it's completely emotional brand attachment, but I'm brand attached to Nikons. That being said, it hit a point where Sony was making better cameras from a technology perspective for me. I know a lot of people, it's not necessarily the case, and some pretty famous Disney-related photographers tried experiments with Sonys and went back to Nikons, but because they're generally smaller, and as I've explained to other people, if cameras didn't exist at all today and somebody said, hey, I'm going to make something that's like a camera where you can change lenses and take pictures, they would design them probably more like the Sonys than they would like traditional DSLRs, which are bigger and have a mirror that flaps up and down and a prism in them and all that stuff. So I use a pretty high-end Sony. It's the full-frame A7 II R, if I have that right. which is the highest resolution full frame they have. But I'll put that caveat there again, though, too, is that even though it's still important the camera you get, every camera today can technically take a great image. Put the money in the lenses first. But that's what I have. Mostly I shoot. Let's see, last time I went to Disney, I took what did I take? I have and here's a good example. I have a 24-70 for my camera, f4, so it's a fixed amount of aperture, the amount of light that it lets in. It's a nice lens. It was an expensive lens, but it's a zoom lens. I don't like the pictures from that. So I go and I have a fixed 35 that I use, and I have a fixed 55 that I love. That is probably the best lens I've ever owned in my lifetime. I do have like a 70-200, but it's big and bulky. I don't usually take that, but I do have a 90 fixed focal length. I'll sometimes take that. So if I want just a sort of a more formal portrait type picture of a kid or something at the park, I'll use that. And I change lenses a lot, and it's a pain in the ass. But I say that it's a pain in the backside. But in the end, I get better pictures out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find, I think we touched on this last week, but do you find that the pictures you take now are different with, now that you have kids, and has your goal for photography changed at all? Or has it changed and you didn't really intend it to change, but it has because, because you have kids and everything now? Yeah.
So it is. So, oh gosh, it's such a complicated question.
I know. You asked me last week, so I'm asking you this week.
So now you put me on the spot. But I think it's the same kind of answer. If I had unlimited time where I could go spend solo time at the park, I think I would still have the same sort of emotional fun of taking pictures of the park as a subject versus when I'm there with family, I'm taking just enough pictures of the park to build the story for my Flickr album that'll have the pictures of the family in it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean now, and it may just be, it's hard to say, but it may just be because we had kids very late in life, so I had many years, many opportunities to just go have the park and its attractions and its details. Which, by the way, if somebody is into photography and they go to the parks and they don't try to focus on details like what am I trying to think of? Like little parts of architecture or sort of parts of railings. I think there's so many details, and I think that's why anybody who would listen to this that's into Disney would appreciate the details of Disney. Don't just do the wide angle, grab everything in the frame. You get in close to some of those details. But anyway, so I spent many years kind of focusing on the park itself as the subject, and then we had kids, and so now they're a bigger part of that. But in the end, I think it's there's obviously no right or wrong to that. I think it's whatever somebody gets excited about taking pictures of, right? Or
right.
I try to make it a blend. And while I don't have the time now, the luxury to, like you do, to just go out there with a tripod and just kind of do a photo safari there, I would love to do that. I'd love to, and I'll say just it's also hard. I mean, there's a lot of great photographers out there that they have the time for that, and they take such phenomenal pictures of the parks that I think, well, I don't need to do that because they've already got that covered. But nobody's taking phenomenal pictures of my family except for me. So, in the end, that's what I'm going to get probably more joy out of. And like I think I mentioned last time, a very good friend of mine said once, he said, I go back and I look at my pictures, and the only ones that really have an emotional attachment to me are the ones with my family in them. Not just, I took a great landscape of where we were, and I'm like, a landscape, it's nice, pretty, but, to the pictures of my family in it that are from 10 years ago that they'll never be that young again or whatever, priceless. So, but in the end, what drives me most of all is that no matter what I'm taking a picture of, whether it's the castle or my family or race cars or whatever, I want to end up with the best possible picture of that, because I'm going to be looking at that picture or those collection of pictures for the rest of my life. So, that's where, and maybe this is my camera sales background, but it is worth every penny to me that I would spend on photography gear, because you can't go backwards again. Your kids are never going to be 7 again, missing a tooth in front of the castle, right? So make that count, right? And
we also can't discount knowledge either. I mean, you need to learn how to use your camera, and because an example, and I know we're going way long, but an example from tonight, I went to get my haircut, and I've been going to the same hairdresser for a decade, And so we're friends on Facebook, and we all go to her, and she was commenting on because I posted pictures from a parade that we went to last Saturday.
Yeah.
And she commented and she said, "Oh, those are, those are really good pictures." And, it looked like the kids were having fun. Because I did take pictures of the kids, but I also took, once again, I took photos of the floats and, the bands and things like that to tell the story. Right. Because that's what I'm trying to do more and more, that I actually, I think you do a really good job of that. And so I'm trying to, once again, learn from you and try to bring that into what I'm doing. But it was a nice compliment. And she, she said, I have, what kind of camera do you have? And I said, well, I actually have I told her a Sony A6000, and I said, it's a small camera, but it has interchangeable lenses, try to say it in English. And she's like, oh, well, I have a Nikon. And I said, oh, well, what kind do you have? And she's like, I don't know. It's like a 5000 or something. And I said, oh, like a 5300 or 5100. She's like, yeah, something like that. And she's like, yeah, but I got it. But I can't, like, the pictures I take with it, they don't come out that great.
Right.
And, and she bought it with the kit lens or whatever. And so, and usually when you buy it with that lens, that's not the greatest lens to start somebody out with, right? I mean, quite honestly.
I'm sorry, the what lens?
Just the kit lens. It's like an 18 to 55 or something like that.
Right. Oh, right? No, those are terrible. People, number one, don't buy them. If you do buy them, just put it in a drawer. Don't use it. Those are the worst. They're kit lenses because they're the cheapest lenses they can put on a camera and sell them. So, all right, go ahead.
So anyway, so that's what I told her. I said, I said, it's taking, it's not just the camera. You also have to learn how to use it. I said, it's taken me a really long time, and I never stopped learning. But I told her I appreciated the comment. But I think that's what everybody wants to get, right? To where they have photos of their families, having a good time, showing what they're doing, and, telling a story. Just like you said, you'll look back 15, 20 years and see this collection of photos that you took, and you'll be able to say, oh, yeah, that was when we went to that parade. And look, there's part of the parade, and there are the kids trying to catch beads and everything else. And there's, there's my son with the beads all around him and dancing. That was a great shot, by the way. Yeah, I like it. Yeah. And so anyway, but I think that's what everybody's trying to get to, right? Yeah. Is that, and we've said it before, but I think a lot of emphasis, and we talked, that's what the discussion was tonight about lenses, but you really have to take that first step and really take the time to start to, and it takes a long time, but just get the basics down of, and there are books out there, there are YouTube videos you can watch, but, spend that little bit of time, at least learning the basics, learning about your camera. And that'll take you a long way. Even with a crappy lens, it'll take you a long way. To at least let you know what kind of lens you should have.
So let me depart from that just a little bit. I'm totally going to agree with you. The education, you got to really learn. I'm gonna put a little slightly different spin on it.
Okay.
Because I've spent, and it used to be so different with film because there were so many technical aspects to taking photography, and I used to develop my own film and develop my own prints and all that stuff, and so I was really into the technical aspects of shutter speeds and apertures and all that. As I've gotten older and hopefully matured in my approach to photography, etc., what I've learned more and more is that the biggest, and especially today, because it's so, and maybe that's one of the biggest differences, is that today it's so easy to get a technically good photograph that if somebody's going to say, well, what do I learn? There's so much to learn. What I'm going to say, and it may seem the most boring, especially if you're a gearhead like me. I love gear. I love things with dials and buttons and lots of settings and all that. But if you're going to spend any time learning anything and you want the best possible pictures that you can get, go read a book or two on composition.
Yeah.
Because no matter what, even if you have the world's worst, let me put it the other way. If you have the world's best lens and best camera and you know squat about composition, you're still going to end up with mediocre pictures. And you'd be like, but I spent $5,000 on all this stuff. Chris told me to get prime lenses, and that's what I have. I spent all the money I have, and like, don't do that. But I spent all the money I have on these lenses, and yet my pictures, they look like they're just bleh. It's because you need to understand some call them rules of composition, not really rules, but they're sort of the dynamics of composition. And maybe we'll talk about the next segment. I might have a recommendation for that. But that's, and I didn't read a whole lot of books on composition. I did maybe, back in the 80s when I was kind of first really getting into some serious photography. But I hadn't in a long time. And then I picked up a book in the last couple of years. And there's, because my brain is so much like a sieve, there are only like 3 things that I remembered out of the book. But my God, those 3 things that I keep in mind, my pictures end up being so much better because I have a couple of rules about composition in my head as often as I can, and my pictures are better for it. For example, if you think you're close enough to your subject, you're probably not. Get twice as close, fill up the frame, have the tops of their head touching the edge of the frame and the sides, fill up the frame with your subject as much as possible. Get as close as you can, to fill up the frame. A great basic rule to consider. And there's like probably just a half a dozen things like that if you keep in mind as you take pictures or as you edit them, right? My wife's not as much into photography as I am, and she'll take some snapshots and they're okay. I take them like I did today, and I downloaded them to my phone, and I did a quick edit, quick change in the cropping, and it was a way better picture. And that's all it took. Same equipment, no difference in, I didn't retake the picture. I wasn't standing there, but just in how you crop it and how you present the image can make such a difference. So composition is huge. So study up a little bit on that, and you get way better pictures.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we do need to put those books. I have one that not to harp on this too much, but it's Understanding Exposure. It's a great book because it really helps you think about, especially like light, how light interacts with your camera. I mean, more than anything, light is key, obviously, right?
It's kind of important for photography. Yep,
it is. And so this book, it explains exposure to you. It explains the triangle of, shutter speed, aperture, and ISO, and how they all interact with each other. And once you get those concepts down, you should be able to put your camera on manual and just completely control it if you wanted to. I don't do that because I'm lazy, but it's a good book just to get you thinking of how your camera works and what goes into it, and how to make a technically good shot. And then I think, next would be the composition, or first. I mean, they absolutely go hand in hand.
Yeah, and you need both. And it's just it depends on what interests you most. But at the end of the day, it's got to be emotionally impactful image, and I think composition plays more into that than. Because honestly, and this is just my opinion, but you could take, if you have a decent camera today, you could put it on program and you could have a zoom lens and zoom in and out if you want. I'd say you probably get a fixed lens, get better quality. But if you don't understand anything about composition, you're going to end up with really lousy pictures versus knowing a few of the rules.
Yeah.
And you're going to end up with great pictures. Well, certainly better improved pictures because you understand them.
Right. Okay, I think that's good for photography for this week.
Yeah, I think so. Sorry if I got on my soapbox, but it's a passionate subject for me, and it's so frustrating because it's like one of those things where when you know something and you see so many people do the wrong thing and they're just hurting themselves for it. That they'll spend the money, they'll get an expensive camera, cheap out on the lens, just use the kit lens, not know anything about composition, and then get frustrated with their pictures. And it doesn't have to be, good photography is not today, especially, is not that hard to get to with just a little bit of investment in thought and experimentation.
Right. And what's the number one composition rule
for kids?
for kids. I think we need to end every photography.
We'll just say it every time.
Segment
get down to their level, right? Get eye level with the kids. See, you're trying to set me off again, Glenn, and it's and I see so many, the school my son goes to, they try to take a lot of pictures with their cell phones, and every single one of them that's like from 4 feet above the kid, looking down on the top of their head as they look up, and it makes me insane.
Right, but you'll remember where that floor was from.
Yeah, look at that nice dirty floor, and it makes such a difference. And that's go back to composition again. That's the magic of composition, is that it really is just a half dozen rules to keep in mind, and the pictures are phenomenally better. So don't set me off again. I'm just going to rant, and people will write in and say things.
No, I'm just saying because the photos from the parade this weekend, I was sitting on the ground like squinching down so that I could get the angle of the back of my kid waving at the float, and get the whole float in. So I mean, I do acrobatics when I'm
sometimes
taking pictures a lot of time.
Yeah, which is hard for old guys like us. I have one other rant.
Tell me about it.
Can I rant one more rant since we're talking about photography? One more. You got to leave this one. You can take all the rest of it out, but I got to leave this one in. If you do not know how to turn off the automatic flash on your camera or your phone, do not take pictures on a ride, okay? Period. Full stop. If you don't know how to turn off your flash, leave it in your purse or your pocket, all right?
Yes.
That's it.
Oh, my God. Absolutely. And I had to – okay, so can I confess?
Oh dear. Yeah.
So at Universal, since we're going over, baby. So at Universal, we were in the Escape from Gringotts Harry Potter ride, and we're in the pre-show, and I took my phone out to take a picture, and I don't know why I took my phone. Whatever reason. Because they don't let you take camera. Camera. They don't let you take anything except your phone or whatever on the ride. Okay? So I didn't have my camera. It was.
What
do
you have to do with your stuff?
Huh?
What do you do with your stuff?
You put it in a locker.
Ugh. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, this is one that's the ride that it's like a roller coaster thing. Right?
Yeah, it's like
Okay.
And so anyway, so I had my phone, and that's it. And so I took my phone out, and I don't know how in the world, but it had the flash on.
Oh, God.
And so I get it, and I go to take a picture, and I'm like, wait, it didn't take the picture. And then all of a sudden, like, because there was this delay, and the flash goes off, and I'm like, I wanted to bash my head against the wall, because I'm like, oh my God, I automatically became one of those people that I always sneer at and
and somewhere on the ride was me, the guy like me, going, what is with that moron? Did you not listen?
Because I ruined it for everybody else, and that picture did not come out.
Yeah, and what's funny and or sad is that I've seen it happen. I think I'll give humanity the benefit of the doubt. I think for most of the people I see, it is an accident. I think they don't realize it's on automatic or forget, because I see them like quickly kind of fumble with the camera afterwards. They're trying to take it,
and that's okay. I mean, okay, if you see that they're like, oh no, I can't believe I did that, but
no.
But there's others that they keep doing it. Like one time I rode Pirates of the Caribbean, and they were just flashing away the whole time, and it's just so annoying.
And the thing is, I can't stand flash anyway. Your picture is going to look like garbage.
Of course, it's going to look like garbage, but they don't realize that.
So they're going to look like garbage, and you messed up everybody else's experience. So thanks, Glenn. You Gringotts.
I know.
I don't even know what that is, but sounds bad. Gringotts.
It's a bank.
All right, we can't talk about photography anymore. This gets me so riled up. I get so emotional about it.
It's fun. I love it.
We can talk about cabanas. I wouldn't care, but if you start talking photography, I'm going to get all worked up.
All right. Do you have a charity spot?
Next? Do I have a who? What?
Charity spot.
Yeah, I do. I got to change the name because I realized, a lot of things I want to pick, or that I have picked, or will pick, or should have picked, or how we do that. Use those verbs. They're not so much always charities, but they're nonprofits. They're there to kind of make the world a better place. So that's kind of what I have this time. It's not a charity, but it's an organization there to make the world a better place.
Sure.
Specifically, the digital world. So the one we're living in right now in podcast land. Hello. Because in the physical world, we have countries and we have laws, and some have constitutions, and some of those constitutions get ignored, and their leaders do their own thing anyway. But either way, you usually have some sort of thing that people lobby for rights, rules get enacted to protect those rights, etc. But where it gets a little bit different, a little bit murky, is in the matrix, in the digital world, where things are different. Data is a lot more accessible. Traditional borders don't matter as much. But there's still, still rights that we want to have. There's still freedoms that we want to be able to have, whether it's freedom of expression or safety, etc. And there's an organization out there that their whole mission is to protect those kinds of things, and that is the Electronic Frontier Foundation. They're a great organization that they focus on stuff like encryption and what kind of law enforcement access to your digital life, what kind of rights they have to get to that stuff, and they're constantly watchdogging those things. So, as they say from their website, they are the leading nonprofit defending civil liberties in the digital world. I think that kind of sums it up better than I could have. And so there's a lot that's going on these days that if you hear about things that are happening with whether it's like I said, your access to your personal digital files or net neutrality, things like that, and you don't know what to do about that. One of the great things about this organization is they give a lot of guidance on how to take action on various things as they come up. And so good thing to keep an eye on. So that's the EFF.org, Electronic Frontier Foundation, and check them out. Maybe they could help you in some way.
All right, picks of the week.
I want to talk about photography some more.
Okay.
Get worked up.
Go ahead.
Is it me first? I don't know who's first. Me? You?
I actually did go first last week.
All right, well, that's me. All right, so I'm going to chain on to that. I'm going to I had a whole different pick planned, but now that I got all worked up about composition and knowledge of photography, I'm gonna pick a book that it was probably the first book on composition I've read in a long time. You might have recommended this to me. I'm not sure where I found out about it. Did you? I don't know. The title is Brian Peterson's Understanding Composition Field Guide. Did you recommend this to me? Somebody did.
I think I did.
Yeah. I think we'd heard about it, whatever. Anyway, so I said, yeah, good. I got it on Kindle. It's all a massive $11.99 on Kindle, which I find really handy because I'll sometimes have it on my phone because it's on Kindle. And so if I'm out and I want just kind of refresher on things to keep in mind, I haven't specifically taken a lot of shots at Disney lately, and I'm out there and I'm like, I'm on the gondola heading over to the studios, and I could just kind of do a quick refresher. Lots of neat things in there. He goes through a lot of actual examples of his students that they would go out on like photo walks and kind of show the differences and the different perspectives. And it truly is like magic when you start understanding the different sort of dynamics of composition and how you can really make things take off just by changing, viewpoint a little bit, cropping, etc. So that's my pick.
Okay, and I'm going to piggyback on that, and I'm going to recommend Understanding Exposure by Brian Peterson.
Okay.
It's the same guy.
He should be giving us a cut of these book sales.
I know, right? But it's very similar. He takes his class out, real world, and shows them how to set their cameras up and expose, how to get the best exposure, how to make the best photo. So these two books, I think, if you buy these two, I think that it would really put you on, really good footing to becoming a better photographer.
Yep. Yeah, totally agree. And if you think we're idiots and we don't know anything about photography and resources, then just go search Brian Peterson. That's B-R-Y, by the way, Brian Peterson, on Amazon, and go take a look at the reviews of any one of his books, and they're all phenomenal. They're all. I'm looking over them here. I don't see anyone less than 4.5 stars by hundreds of people that have looked at them. So,
and they're not big books.
No, right.
They're easy to read. Like, I actually read through it. Like, I didn't just look at the pretty pictures. I actually read through the entire
you're supposed
book.
to read the words too?
And so highly, I can't recommend it any higher.
All right. Well, with such continuity from us here. How's that?
For once.
Yeah, cool. I like big books. Did I tell you that? I cannot lie. It's true. I had to do it.
Hey, that's a great song.
All right.
So all right, so this later. Will be.
Is it morning yet?
We will not have a podcast next week because of Mardi Gras and because of something else.
Yeah,
and be around. So we will meet back in early March. And
sounds so far away. Wow,
so it's okay.
Well, I'm glad I got in some extra rants this time to keep people's tanks filled.
Yeah,
we're off. All right, well, off for a week. Wow, it's like I'm on vacation for my second job. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, you're on vacation. So silly. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Terrific Recordings of Nothing. Follow Chris on Twitter and Instagram at CBGray, and Glenn on Twitter and Instagram at DizWiz. Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Tron_FM, and on Facebook at Terrific Recordings of Nothing. For all things related to the show, including show notes and links to connect with us, visit us at tron.fm.
All right. Did we cover everything? I didn't even go back to the rundown. Did we cover it all?
Sure we did.
And then some. Now I'm feeling bad. I got all worked up about the photography. I don't want to get preachy, but my God.
People. No, it's excellent. I mean, you're not. At least to me, you're not. I don't know. You always talk to me like this, so
yeah, you're used to it, but you're numb to my ridiculousness.
I am.
Here he goes with the prime lenses again. Yeah.
The only thing we didn't mention, is if you are going to a special event and you do need a super zoom lens or something.
No, there's no excuse for super zoom ever.
Nope. There's also the option to rent that lens instead of buying it so that you can take the photos and then send it back.
Okay. Well, do you know what I mean by super zoom? Was not like super telephoto. I mean like the ones that cover such a massive range. They're like
like the 18 to 300.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know. They're functional, but they're not. I mean, you just don't use your camera, your phone at that point.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Is like there's a threshold at which the picture quality starts to. You start fighting with the lens to get a decent picture out of it, and it's just not worth it at that point.
But and I don't mean what I'm saying is that for the Rolex 24, that's a special event, and we rent a zoom lens for it, right?
Yeah, right.
You don't have to buy these lenses.
Good point.
Even if you want to rent a wide angle lens, just to see what it's like and see if you like it or not.
Yeah, and actually that is a great point. So maybe you want to leave this in somewhere. But okay, good. The podcast that won't end. So there have always been lens rental houses in the world, but back in the old days, it was only pre-internet. It was only if you lived in sort of a major commercial market like New York or San Francisco or something, L.A. whatever. Pick your favorite big city. And there might have been one or two houses when it was very expensive to rent from, et cetera. But now we've used borrow lenses. We've used what else have we talked about? Lens rentals, right? And they're so easy to just get them. And I don't know how these people make money from, because it seems like every time I've rented a lens that we've rented lenses, they look brand new. So I don't know who's renting these, but reasonable prices and a really easy, they ship them to you, you use them, you put them back in the same box, you tape it up and, put the label on it and then you're done. So, yep. What do we
So it's just another option. So to see if you don't know what you want, go ahead and rent one or two. Point. And they're not that expensive. You could rent one for like a week, as long as it's not a super duper, insane lens. It's usually under or around $100, if that.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly what I did last when we went to shoot the race. Was I wanted to try this really wide angle. Oh, I forget what I got now. 10 millimeter? I think it was a 10 millimeter.
Yeah, 10 millimeter. Yeah.
That I think that lens is like $1,000 or $1,200 or something like that. But I rented it for 4 days, whatever it was we got them for $50. So for $50, I got to try out the lens, and I found out that it's not something I need to add permanently to my collection, but I got to use it for 2 days. So you make a great point, Glenn. That's a great place to kind of try out. If you're trying to get a feel for what your style is and what kind of lenses would be most important to you.
Yeah,
good idea, man.
Look at that.
When did you start having good ideas?
I know, right? Once a year.
Wow. Good point. I'm going to listen to this show more often. I learn a lot of things from this show.
It's this Mardi Gras mojo right now. I'm in a groove.
It's such a huge thing to you people, this Mardi Gras. Now we're bookending the show with the Mardi Gras talk.
There you go.
Yeah. I meant to show Melissa your pictures of your from the parade because
show her that
she still has the opposite impression of the. I think
I know that's why. Believe me, that's why I took some of the photos I did.
Stop it! You're so ridiculous.
Okay,
you're so ridiculous.
I'm being serious.
It's funny. Mardi Gras. So what actually does anything actually have? Like you have all these parades leading up, but what happens on actual Mardi Gras? Which I think is what? It's like on a
parades.
Thursday, right? This year? Is Mardi Gras on a Thursday this year?
Yeah, it's Thursday. Right, exactly.
See what I did there?
Fat Tuesday falls on Thursday this year.
At Universal, it's in October.
Wait, what's that?
At Universal Studios, it's in October.
I know. It started in January and it goes through Easter.
Yeah, you get y'all worked up.
Yeah, so Mardi Gras Day is just it's like the culmination of everything, parades throughout the day, and the if you will, the main parade of Mardi Gras heads out. Actually, two of the main parades, that's their parade day. So, and then the rest of the day, like we're gonna go over to my grandmother's house, and the whole family goes, and we just relax and have fun, talk and have fun. Wow. And
I never thought about that. So it's actually like a holiday kind of in that sense, right? A gathering of the people.
Yeah, it's like Thanksgiving almost.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know you were such a hater of the Thanksgiving Day parade. What's that all about?
No, it's fine if you like that.
If
you like standing on the side and just watching these things go by, then sure. If you don't want to participate in anything.
Because they're not throwing anything, is that why?
I mean, why go to a parade if you're not going to catch something?
Oh, it's ridiculous. This whole episode we talked about was about photography and seeing things. You're seeing things.
Right. You're seeing things. You're seeing stuff coming at your face, so catch it. Jeez. Actually, I'm trying to get, I think I'm seeing the glimmer of the call of doubloon collecting in my son.
Yeah. Oh, really?
This year?
Yeah.
So
that's the aspect I would get into. If I lived there, I'd be like, well, I want to hit as many parades as I could to get the as many doubloons as I could.
Of course, it's a quest.
But how does this not? Oh, we didn't talk about pin. I saw you put pin collecting. We got to talk about that some episode.
Yeah.
How is it you're not like a crazy doubloon collector guy? With like multiple albums and
I do have multiple albums.
Do
you? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but it's weird because my doubloon collection starts in the early 80s and goes to 1994.
Huh, wonder why
then there's this huge gap.
until, I don't know, 2007?
8.
Okay.
And then it picks back up again.
It was so weird.
So weird. So odd. I don't get that. Yeah. I do have every doubloon from Rex, from the main, the big parade.
Wow. Yeah.
Dating back to 62.
Wow.
Does so I've had to find these, and Yeah. So anyway, go ahead.
Does anybody ever play with the kind of materials of this? They all seem like they're the same thing, the same size.
They're aluminum,
I guess.
Yeah.
Does anybody ever do wooden ones or odd?
Yes.
I was going to say oddly shaped ones, but I guess you don't want points on them. But
what I mean? They're actually one crew, Cleopatra used to. They used to have a hexagon. They actually
ninja stars they're throwing down from the cranes. Yeah.
It just depends on the crew. They do like to do their own thing, different colors. Okay. They'll make certain colors rare, which are really cool because then those are the ones
right.
Believe me, you're gonna get me nuts if you get me really thinking about it. But like Orpheus,
I bet there's like meetups of people that are into this so that they can.
There actually are, and I'm thinking about joining one this year.
No, shut up.
Yes.
Wait, let me try that again. Hang on. So hang on. Wait a minute. I'm gonna try it again. No, that's better.
Orpheus, they make doubloons that are huge. Like they're probably 4 inches across or so.
Whoa.
And they look like records because Orpheus is the god of music, and that's Harry Connick Jr.'s
I was going to say it's Harry Connick's thing, right? Or he's part of that.
So they make these, but I don't think they really throw them. They give them out
privately.
But yeah, so they do. There was a time in the 90s where crews started. They just stopped minting them and throwing them because they got too expensive, and and so there's kind of a resurgence in the last I think since Katrina, because a lot of people lost their doubloon collections in Katrina.
Okay.
And they realized, hey, these are kind of cool. So it's coming back a little bit, but not to the extent it was back in the 80s, 70s and 80s, where crews really got into the, minting them and the rareness of certain ones and things like that.
Right. I could totally get into that.
I know, right?
As a recovering coin collector, I could totally get into that.
It's a lot cheaper than coin collecting, I will tell you that, because the resale value is very low. I mean, somebody from, wherever Iowa doesn't care about Mardi Gras doubloons, right? It's only us nuts here in New Orleans, but to us, it's kind of cool. It's more about the quest than anything else, right?
Well, that's most of collecting, right? So.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Well, someday, do you have them all? I'm going to set you off on a new project here. Do you have them all? Do you have them all photographed and?
No, so that was my, just getting back to like a little personal project I've always wanted to do is set up a doubloon database, right?
Yeah.
For at least my doubloons, but with the thought of maybe, expanding that, and if I get it going and get it, then I could, expand it and publish it on the web. And maybe have it, people either submit me, photos to me or whatever, so that, there could be a complete online collection.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's true, because there's a certain set of that, right?
Yeah. So that would, I was thinking about it because it would teach me, I know databases, but like on the web, I've never programmed, the SQL and PHP and all that good stuff. So
I know people can help you with that.
No, I know. And there's books and all out there. I just need to... Actually, that's not a bad idea for me to do that now. Just because. Let's just say that.
Yeah, you should. You know what? Whatever. You should. If you're interested in that.
I should.
It's such a web development's so hard right now because there's so many competing, not only technologies, but architectures and ideas or whatever. But there's something called a mean stack, MEAN. Which is the acronyms are, but basically Node.js development with the things that go along with it. You might, if you're interested in that space, you check that out. It might seems like something you'd like to do.
Yeah,
and I want to see your catalog, so do it.
But then it's like, oh wait, I have to photograph all of them. It's like, oh, it's gonna take forever.
You haven't done that already?
Perfectionist and no.
Wow, this site's pretty. Whoa, look at this site.
Oh, you're looking at what might be out there?
Yeah, just curious. Just curious. I'm a curious fella.
So the official New Orleans doubloon club is at CCDT CLUB.
Oh, that's a good site. Okay,
it's Crescent City Doubloon Traders Club.
Doubloon
CCDTB.
Oh, that's terrible. CCDTC.
CCDT Club.
Oh my God, that's even worse. That was the only domain they could come up with. Oh my God, this site, Glenn. Oh my God.
So, but these are the guys that actually have a price guide, and they have a listing. They have just a listing though of every doubloon ever and the value.
Wow. Man, there's too much shorthand here for me to have any idea what's going on.
Oh, it's not. It's easy. I mean, it's easy.
Yeah, sure. Easy for you. Yeah, I don't speak your language.
No, but we can get you up to speed.
I'm good.
Aww.
It's the last thing I need is another hobby. So my son is sitting at my computer. My other pick was going to be a game that my son is playing now. It was only available on PC, so he couldn't play on an iPad. And so I've set him up on my computer here. He's been playing. And on my second monitor, a picture of R2 comes up. That was like from the R2 Club, right? Something somebody made, but you couldn't tell that it was anybody made. It was just a picture of R2, right?
Yeah.
So he looks at that. I said, "Oh, look, Evan, R2." He's like, "Oh yeah, look at that." He said, "Dad, we should make one of those someday." I'm like,
no.
Turn and look 5 feet to your right. What is that? And he's like, "But it doesn't make any noise or anything." Because he was too young at the time that it did. That he hasn't. Right. I realized he hasn't heard it fired up yet. So I need to get that project back on track. But I'm like, it's sitting. It's 5 feet to his right side. He's like, "We should make one someday."
You should.
I said, "Well, when should we make one?" He said, "I don't know. How about March 5th?" I'm like, "Okay, March 5th." It's like picking a date. Okay. Kids are crazy, awesome. Man. They're little brains.
Yeah.
I love it. That's the best part.